the Team GPT podcast. Brian's with me today. Syed is back in medical school, so he can come in later. We've got two guests. How about you guys introduce yourselves?
I'm Dan.
Right off the bat. Boom, go.
There we go.
I just did.
Okay. I'm Dan as well. The real Dan.
The real Dan. Do you want to put your real name out there, or do you want to hide as Dan today?
No, I'll be Cody.
All right. So Cody and Dan were down training at the gym today. So the main reason we want to have them on the podcast is they're equipped lifters, which we don't have a lot of around here. So we figure we'll throw that one out.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves, how you got into powerlifting, best numbers raw and equipped, and let's talk about why you do equipped without pissing off everyone that listens to our podcast.
All right, so my best raw squat is 335 pounds. Best bench raw is 280, but I put the chips on, so I had 282.
That counts.
And then deadlift 700. And then geared, my best deadlift is also 700.
Which is hit or miss if he makes it.
I like to open around 7. My best bench is 661, and my best squat is 881. Both done here.
Oh, yeah.
I did them here.
Remember that meet?
Real shady, but I got them.
Yeah.
I also don't.
That counts.
Yeah, I count.
What about you?
Best raw squat is
Who cares?
272 and a half. Best raw bench is
Also, who cares?
405, because if you're going to bench 4 plates, it's got to be with steel plates. Deadlift,
It's fair.
who deadlifts raw? I squatted 760 in gear, bench 540, 540, I think.
At regionals?
No, I didn't do very good at regionals. And then I pulled 270, 280, I think. That's 6.
Squat 3.
Yeah,
Squat 3.
Just say-
Those are kilos, so it's more than that.
Yeah, 760, 540, 612.
And you're both going to the Arnold in 2 weeks, right?
Unfortunately.
The Arnold's an interesting event. So, Dan, you're doing the Battle of the Regions, right? So that's the new event. Mm-hmm. Do you know more than that? Because I don't really know a whole lot about it.
Well, I know that it's a Wilkes meet, which is hilarious because that doesn't exist anymore. And
So-
they haven't sent us any emails, or I don't know if it's a points meet now.
Okay.
But as far as I was concerned, it's a Wilkes meet. I don't know if it's region versus. I know it's technically region versus region. I don't know if they're doing like the full, like region scores against each other, or if they're averaging it. I don't.
It's also raw and equipped, isn't it?
Raw and equipped, yeah. Well, it's an equipped
So
meet.
real lifting.
It's an
open meet.
It's an open meet. It's equipped meet. If you compete raw, then you compete raw. But you
Okay.
have to compete in whatever you qualified. as.
Okay.
So like Garrett Bailey is an equipped lifter at 105. He did regionals raw, so he has to compete raw, which is good for me.
Okay. Yeah, that helps a little bit.
Because he's
Yeah.
really strong.
Okay, I didn't realize that. And Cody, which one are you doing at the?
I'm looking to get my face kicked in at the
Grand Prix?
The Grand Prix, yeah. So I got to go against Blaine and Joe, and so yeah, I'll just be getting my face kicked in on Saturday. It's a lot of fun.
But I mean, for those of you like the Grand Prix is, it's the big meet now. At the
on the
Arnold.
rogue strength.
I mean, it's only
it's unlike the usual Prix. It's grand.
this is only the second or third year doing.
I
the
heard
Grand
it's a
Prix.
really fast meat too.
It's
so
very
that-
fast. It's a small meet.
Yeah, there's I think 8 lifters.
Rogue stage.
But it's the biggest one now.
No stream too, which is kind of cool. It's kind of mysterious.
You're not streaming?
No, they don't stream. They don't stream the
That's a
rogue
much
strength stage.
smaller audience.
I had to
That'll
follow.
see me
I had
get
to
my
follow
face kicked
Blaine's day. I think like a year or two ago. He had to do it on Instagram because you didn't. It was one of the only meets that didn't have a stream.
That's weird.
I don't know if that's on purpose.
I think
or-
it's something different because of the stage, because it's not on the USAPL stage. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit different.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's the big meet where it will be fast. Like you said, I think there's
Yeah, it'll be fast. I mean,
flight.
we train pretty fast, so I'm not really that worried about it. Like, we don't spend, unlike the raw lifters, we don't spend like 8 hours to do like 4 sets of squats, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But again, like, you know,
For our raw audience.
Blaine's, I don't
Be ready.
I don't like you. You've had enough of a platform. But no, like, so, you know, there's some pretty good lifters in it, and it'll be It'll be interesting.
Definitely the biggest stage
Yeah.
that the Arnold USAPL has.
Right.
Because it's raw and equipped, right? That's the right mean.
I don't know. I have no idea. I
Yeah,
know
it's
very
like-
It's
little.
like
literally
four raw, 4 equipped
Yeah,
people.
it's like just the top.
I believe.
the top lifters.
I somehow
Yeah.
talked myself into this, so we'll see. I'm not looking forward to the Arnold. There's too many people. Just the whole thing is a nightmare.
Have you lifted at the Arnold before?
No, I've never.
You
been
only
to the
did it
Arnold.
because I'm doing
Yeah, Dan
Okay.
told me he was going, and I was like, "Oh, cool." And then after Worlds, I got an invitation to go, which I kind of like in the back of my head. I've kind of thought about it, but I don't like that many people. So, and then when Dan said he was going, so I was like, "Oh, I'll go watch." And then I got asked to do the Grand Prix, so I was like, "Oh, I guess I'll."
The stage
give
of
it a
it's
shot.
cool,
And then the
but-
more time has gone on, the less excited for this I've gotten.
The stage is cool, but it's just like, I mean, it's
interesting.
It's a crowd.
Yeah.
It's a big crowd. There's a lot of
A lot of
people.
people.
There's a lot of people around. They have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
But they'll stop and
In
watch.
fairness, I very rarely have an idea of what I'm doing. So it all goes pretty well together.
Well, did you guys both start raw lifting? I'm assuming,
No,
unless you on. Yeah, okay. I figured that was
never raw lifted.
So like how did you start an equipment? Because like I said, like we were talking off air, equipment in Connecticut. And I'm older than you guys. Like that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Like when I lifted in high school, I didn't know what any of that was. We just we lifted to get stronger and be better for sports. But like I didn't know what a squat suit was. I didn't know what a bencher was. I didn't know what that was until I was probably in like what your guys' age is now. And my buddy was getting a multiply because single ply just wasn't a thing in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And then so I always trained raw because we didn't know what it was. We didn't know any different. And then when raw lifting started to grow, that's kind of just what we did. Equipped was not a thing.
Yeah. When I started right after college. My roommate texted me about a powerlifting meet, and I thought it was like clean and jerk and snatch, so I had no idea what was going on. So I found out like a week before what powerlifting was, and I mean, we lifted for sports and stuff. So, and I did a couple of meets like that, but we trained at a gym in Worcester. That's like, it was a super old school gym, and there was a guy in there who did a bench shirt. And him and I, the way I got into gear was him and I one day, we were training together, and he challenged me to like benching to 1 rep max. And so he just barely beat me. And so I was like, all right, whatever, cool. I was super pissed because he weighed like 30 pounds less than me. But then he threw on a bench shirt, and then he proceeded to bench like 780. And I was like, all right, well, I got to get into that. You know, I didn't do this. You know, I want to. If powerlifting, the goal is to lift as much weight as possible, I want to use whatever
Right.
I can. So,
Yeah, when I started, I lifted raw. My idea of gear was always that like bullshit multiply. And I'm not saying multiply is bullshit. I'm saying the bullshit multiply. I love multiply lifting if it's done to respectable standards. Like when people are locking out their deadlifts and their knees are bent, like give me a break.
I love it.
So Cody had actually mentioned he would, he wanted to do some gear, and I was like, oh, like
Steroids.
yeah,
Choice of words.
yeah, equipment, and
Just run the whole.
I was like, oh,
cycle
that's
and
interesting. I kind of thought, like I said, the multiply, the monolift, all that. So I continued to lift raw, like an idiot. And Cody got in a squat suit, and we squatted like, 845, something like that. And it was, to depth, a good looking, aesthetically pleasing squat. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So then eventually time came, and we'd screw around a lot at the gym. Like on deloads, we'd load up like reverse bands and do like more weight. And I'm like, we had that same conversation that the goal of the reason we like this sport is to move as much weight as possible. So I just got into gear. I just kind of dove into it after collegiate nationals.
What happened to me too is I remember we at this gym, they used to sell like chic knee sleeves or knee wraps. And one day my knee was killing me, and I had seen this video of Chuck Vogelpohl doing like rack pulls with a knee wrap with one on for some reason. I don't know. But so I went and bought, because they were like $12. So I bought them and I put them on, and I put 50 pounds on my squat like that day. And so I was like, well, so I think like my first experience with any kind of gear was a knee wrap, and it was so positive that it just kind of, I like to lift as much weight as I can. I'm not trying to,
Right.
A set of 5 doesn't excite me.
It's the same. It's the same concept as someone squeezing into a knee sleeve that's 4 sizes too small. You do it so you can get something out of it. You want to lift more weight.
That's why the Inzer cotton singlet has fallen out of fashion.
That's why I got into gear. It was just, let's see what I can do. I still train raw most of the year.
And
Obviously.
that was actually one of our questions on there. Is I mean, like, I think for the raw lifters that are probably listening to this, I think a lot of them just, like we said before, don't get it.
That's for sure.
I mean, but like, how much of your training cycle is actually done in your equipment?
10 weeks before meet.
Just 10 weeks before a meet. So, I mean, in your off season, you're not really in the equipment at all.
No, and we don't really, at least with Coop, we don't really like max out raw because that's not really what we do. So we just train a shitload of volume raw and put on the gear like 10 weeks out. And
even when you're within 10 weeks, so like you guys are, like I said, you're within a couple weeks of the meet. So today was one of your last heavier sessions. Of those 10 weeks, how much of your training is in equipment?
Usually, for me, I train 4 times a week. And I don't do 10 weeks either. I do probably 8 or 6. Like, I do way less. But so if I'm training 4 days a week, 2 days are in gear. That's really it.
I do one piece of gear per lift. I don't know if you guys have this as a question, but the bench shirt's particularly challenging piece of equipment, so I do that twice a week. Obviously not all out intense, just more to get the groove of the shirt. As you can see, it hasn't really paid off yet, but we'll see what happens.
Good job, Zach.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it. I mean, but it's not like I'm not killing myself with 30 sets. I mean, maybe on the lightest days we have 5-6 sets in gear.
We got kind of, before we started this training cycle too, we were doing like, we get bored, so we'll do like, we were doing like 5 sets of like triples and doubles and stuff with gear. So like in the off season, every once in a while I'll throw stuff on and mess around with it. But yeah, I do 2 days a week and I'll mix and match. So like one week I'll do squat and bench, and then deadlift the next day. Or this time around for the Arnold, I've been doing squat on its own day and then bench and deadlift together. Because it is important. I think it's important to try to get them together. Because in a meet, like to me, the hardest thing, in my opinion, about the meet is the fact that you have to go from one to the next to the next. So you have 3, and it's different. It's not bashing raw here. Because I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to do that in a minute.
Not bashing it right now.
It's one of the biggest differences is just like, so when you do like a heavy squat, even anything from 80% up, it's incredibly tiring, and it's a different kind of tired. You're not physically tired. You're just your head hurts. It doesn't. So then to go from that to then benching, which is again I think the most difficult of the 3. And then to finish, you finish dead benching, your hands are swollen, your arms are killing you because of the tension of the shirt, and then you got to go onto the deadlift. So I like to pair them together so that you get kind of that training of going from one to the other. And it's worked out okay. I usually go 3 for 9, so. So my strategy of meets are really working out well.
I know you. You probably heard from Zach. Like Zach's biggest thing is never deadlifting alone.
You signed a thing, so you can't. You're gonna have to bleep a lot of this out.
His biggest thing is never deadlifting alone. So you don't go into the gym and start deadlifting fresh.
Yeah,
always squatting before we deadlift. We have to do something before we deadlift because.
And I took that from Zach.
Yeah.
Zach and I are good friends. A couple years ago we were talking about
you're
it.
the one.
Yeah, and he made a comment one day to me. He's like, "Oh yeah, we never deadlift fresh."
Never.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why?" And he said, "When you deadlift fresh in a meet." And I was like, "Wow, that's so simple. Why am I that stupid to not realize that?"
Yeah.
And literally, like the next week, I was like, "Okay, we're gonna start squatting before we deadlift."
It's not necessarily that we're killing ourselves. It's
Like today.
whatever it's the athlete. How I think he does it, obviously I only know what I get, is usually it's a exercise, like I'll just use me for an example, power squat, because that's where I'm weakest. He'll put in whatever accessory squat attacks that weakness right before you deadlift, kind of get you moving, get you open up, and a little tired, but not, you're not...
But not killing you.
You're not beat going into deadlifts.
One of my guys the other day, we're just starting meet prep, and on his deadlift day, we start off with belt squats, not real heavy, but get some work in. He did some safety squat bar jam press after that, just working on some tricep for lockout strength, and then he deadlifted. The deadlift was the main thing of the day, but it was actually the third thing he did.
Yeah.
I took that from Zach because it just made sense. And we hit, and for the most part now, like what I've noticed is since we switched to that, we hit more deadlifts and meets, and we're not dead at the end of the meet. And and that's a big one when you see people that they go into deadlift, like you said, especially equipped, and they're going into deadlift and they're just shot.
And that's like mostly raw. Like I can't imagine throwing equipment in the mix there.
Yeah.
Oh, you see a lot of it, and not to bash it, but you see these kids in the gym for 8 hours a day. They're not working fast. So when you have to work fast at a meet, they're exhausted.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I think, because I've actually incorporated that the past couple of years, is I always do some type of squat first, like always. And if it's my equip day, then I come right in and squat. But if it's a bench day, I squat first. I think the biggest thing that does is it adds a little bit of mental toughness too, which is severely lacking in the raw. I mean, it is. I mean, these guys, the excuses for not being able to move in a straight line are ridiculous. But it's like, it adds some mental toughness. Again, you're never going to deadlift fresh. You know what I mean? So, like, I think if you put, like, a moderately heavy squat before you deadlift, or even a bench before you deadlift, it takes your mind off of the deadlift. And then it forces you to go back and have to make, you're not going to do it fresh in a meet, so why would you do it fresh in the gym?
For someone like me with no mobility,
although
warms me up a little bit.
Right. If you start with a deadlift, the gram videos are good.
Yeah, that's the big one.
The gram videos are good.
But that's a big one. Like I said, years ago, we would start with deadlift, and we'd wonder why, like on meet day, deadlift might not. Like we deadlift less than what we did in training.
I know, because, I just made fun of it, but
maxed out your squat, maxed out your bench, and then had a pull. But like in training, you were only pulling fresh.
The mental toughness thing's a big thing. Like being able to and I think this is where a lot of people who don't come from other sports have a really hard time with it. Is being able to if you ever really I've seen it. I started reffing for some reason, and I've seen it a lot. I've seen it a lot in just these meets. Like they'll have a bad bench and they can't move on. You know what I mean? Or they have a bad squat and they can't move on. Or they struggle with the weigh-in and they can't move on. They can't just move forward. So I think working on that in the gym can be really helpful.
No, I agree with that. I coming from a baseball background, being a pitcher, there's a couple balls that I threw when I was playing that haven't landed yet. And you have to forget that the moment that ball gets hit, because if you're thinking about that, the next pitch is going to be the same thing.
Especially because it is such a simple sport, but it is incredibly mentally demanding. I mean, you're on a platform completely by yourself. You have 3 people judging you. There's about, at a local meet, you got anywhere from 12 to 100 people watching you. I mean, it can be tough, and I think there's just a mental toughness that's just lacking.
I mean, you bust your ass for 12 weeks in the gym, and you get out there and go 1 for 3 on bench. It's like, God damn.
Well, I'm excited.
It makes you think about what did you just do for the last 12 weeks? It felt like a failure. It might not have been. It might have been something just happened that day. Maybe you had an off day, but at least you can learn something and try to go to the next meet.
Right. Before I started with Cooper, I benched 475 over 30 times successfully in a row, and then I missed it all 3 times at the meet. And then I went out and ended up pulling a PR. Obviously, it didn't count because I bombed, but just moving on, it is what it is, and dwelling on it's not going to change anything.
No.
There's no, there's always another meet, and I think, going back to, the squat bench dead in one day, I think, it's the only sport where people don't practice their sport. There's no scrimmage.
Right.
And it's crazy to me that people wouldn't, and it happens. Definitely going to your first meet, you might not know that. But there's no excuse for people to not practice their sport and get better from it.
But at the same time, when you squat, bench, dead, because that's the new hotness now too, is where everybody squat, benches, and deads every single training session. But the problem is, we were going back, that 8-hour thing. You're not. I don't know.
No one practices in the time frame.
Right, you gotta I think a big part that a lot of lifting, both raw and equipped, both raw and equipped, a big part that's missing is the time thing. Because I see that in meets all the time too. Is your first attempt goes, and then you're up in 11 more minutes. You got to move. You can't go and sit on the floor and text your buddy, or then you go over to the other side of the gym and see what they're doing, or the focus is missing.
There's another sport where you would text someone at the timeout.
Right.
I don't get what people do that at meets. Have full convos, but dude, you're up. You're on the
Well, it happens all the time, and you see it. I think you see it a lot at local meets where you have the third attempt squats and the third attempt they're a nightmare because people aren't ready to go because they're not training that cardio part of the sport. I mean, that was the hardest thing at Worlds. I was shocked, like how fast things were moving. I mean, we got back to the back room, and it's like
Or
you gotta
altitude in Denver.
Yeah, like, I mean, there's always things that you can't control. So that goes back to that mental toughness thing. Like you're never going to be able to control everything. So just as much as you can, trying to,
Minimize.
right.
As much as you can be prepared for everything.
Yeah.
And that's something as simple as like yesterday. They said we had a meet yesterday here. It was one of our smaller meets, so it went fast. So people had to be ready for it. But a lot of new people that weren't prepared didn't know commands.
Yeah.
And how many people miss lifts on commands, and then
There's no excuse for being unprepared for your first meet. I always say.
But like so they missed their first lift because of a command, and then they figured it out. But now their third was 10 kilos less than what they wanted because they didn't make that jump, and now they're upset because they trained for this. And
or they make that jump and miss it, and now you're stuck with just your opener.
And then make that huge jump, and you're like, oh, that was a bad idea.
Yep.
That's why your openers.
And then it feels like all that training was like, what was it for? You felt like you kind of waste everything when you learn something, you got to and get over it, and you come back and do what you got to do on the next one. It happens.
Also, I mean, if we're gonna be completely honest, no one cares what you did.
Yeah.
Right.
When you bomb out,
your coach is going to get the check next month anyway. He doesn't care.
Coming from my experience, when I bombed out, it's like no one in my gym cared.
Yeah.
I didn't care. We're not playing for a professional team.
No.
One cares if you bomb
I
out.
mean,
Just put your head back
you
down.
should care because you put the work in.
I was
So you
frustrated.
should care.
Of course I was. It
Right.
actually
Well, that's what I mean.
It motivated me to work with Zach.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm
So
sick.
you better.
I'm sick. Yeah, exactly. But outside of that, like, my mom didn't even care. You know what I mean? Like,
it doesn't it's not like it changes you as a person. Like,
No,
you're
no.
a bad person now because you bombed out. You're in a bad meeting.
No.
Like, you're right. It does. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We want to get better, and that's like my job as a coach is like to make you better. So hopefully you can have a better performance and you can enjoy it more. But when the meet's over,
You got to go to work.
whatever. Yeah,
I went 4 for 9 at regionals, and then the next meet was Zach.
Although
Went 8 for
that's
9.
a great idea.
Yeah,
we
it
should do cuts from the
He's a big
sport.
cut from the sport. Yeah.
I'd be gone. Never mind. That's a bad idea. I'd have been gone a long time ago.
What else we got here?
I mean,
I guess comparably, I mean, I've never competed equipped. I've barely lifted equipped, but the difference.
He's been in a shirt once.
Been in a shirt once.
I forced him.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's tough one to start with.
Yeah.
That's right. The difference competing equipped compared to competing raw.
Oh, I'll jump in. I'll jump in on this real
One's a
quick.
competition.
I'll jump in on this real quick.
The
So
other one is more like a big like. Go ahead, jump.
when you're Dan, and your deadlift is just hilariously awful, and you're benching mid 500s, from benching in a shirt to 500 to your opener at like 540 on the deadlift. I mean, I have like 15 minutes before I'm lifting.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference. So if you're lucky enough to have a good deadlift, you don't need to worry about it. But if you have a bad deadlift and a good bench and a full mate in gear, because most of the times if you're in gear, you're lifting last by quite a
Yeah, local meets,
at local meets, regional meets, even. So when I regionals, for example, I had the heaviest bench, and then I went out and my deadlift was like 5th lightest. So I literally had to go back. I was taking my shirt off as we're walking back to start pulling one plate. I mean, that's my biggest difference is, which I guess it was kind of like that raw too. I always had a better bench. My deadlift's always been atrocious, but if it's that extreme, I mean the difference between bench and deadlift, you don't have any time.
The biggest thing is the time factor because it's incredibly stressful. For yesterday we trained squats, and you can when you're doing that you can wrap a knee wrap whenever you want, but learning how to time that up where
important.
you're not in the knee wrap forever because you can't be, and versus you also don't want them to say bars loaded and you only have one knee wrap on, because then it doesn't matter who your handler is, they're going to be. I mean, that's the biggest difference.
You're panicked, they're panicked.
Right, and even the same thing, going from a 3-board, 2-board, 1-board, making sure you get all those attempts in, while also making sure that your flight hasn't started yet. It's a lot more stressful. There's a lot less donut eating. There's a lot less texting, back and forth. Does she think I'm cute? Did she look at me? There's a lot less singlet exchanging.
Is that?
I say that's a new one for me.
Oh, no.
I don't know about that one.
There's new you gotta have there's different singlets for
Oh
different
yeah,
lifts.
all right. I'll give you that.
Thank you. But no, in all seriousness, it's stressful. It's a lot less. There's no downtime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The other issue is like usually you're lifting a lot more weight, so it's not like again I don't have to. It's not like I'm going to 315. You know, for my warm ups. Like warming up takes a long time, and you gotta be. You know, that's why a lot of times like the geared lifters at they've kind of earned their like that stereotype of being like the grumpy, quiet, like they'll snap at you in the back room. Because it's like when we were talking earlier about one of Dan's meets where he found out he was lifting like in 10 minutes. So we had to get him from
in my underwear and Crocs eating
we had
chips.
to get him from that
to 660.
660 in 10 minutes. But so we're warming up with him, and we have all these other people going, "Hey, can I have 315 on the bar?" And we're at 495. We're not. We can't. We can't go back
I
down.
wrapped my knees and left them wrapped, and I just sat back down and I did 3 squats with the knee wrap still on.
And it's
Because the time, and I also think too is no matter how experienced you are in gear, I found that you don't know the timing unless you've actually handled someone.
Yeah.
Because I've been lifting in gear, and for example, your meet that we had here, 2 years ago, whatever, you squatted 400. The first set, or his first like squat, he was in a knee wrap for like 2 minutes because
Yeah.
I wrapped him way too early.
because you also don't know what the little routine that the Raw kid before you gonna have. Like how many times are we gonna?
Well, that's
slap?
also nice.
Are we
in a-
gonna wrench the
in a
bell?
in a local meet? That's nice too because we're going from most people who aren't squatting
Right.
380 kilos raw. Like we have some time for
Yeah,
whatever
right.
weight, but in an equip meet like that, you kind of got to be ready to go because nationals, Arnold, there's going to be people around his weight. So
And you got to make decisions fast too. Like what is your second attempt going to be?
Mm-hmm.
What if you miss your opener? Because nobody knows more about missing their opener than this guy. So you're going to have a lot of different there's a lot of options. Like how did it feel? Because sometimes it's just you go to squat your opener and it's just not. You know what I mean? You grind it back up. It's like, okay, I guess I'm not making a 20 kilo jump. But sometimes you like the meet I had here. I go to squat my opener and I start like falling sideways. So I just went back up. But I told Dan like, just put 400 on the bar. So I got it. It's fine. You know what I mean? And it's not for a local meet like that's not a big deal as much.
Right.
Like you have to have a plan. You can't come in and
another thing too is your body composition. Nothing's worse than getting to the meat and putting your suit and going,
yeah.
uh-oh.
Yeah.
Like weight cutting isn't.
You can't, it's so,
yeah.
I have never successfully cut weight in gear. It's just like when you're light in your gear, there's no worse feeling on the planet because everything feels heavy.
It just comes down to like what you guys said a few minutes ago. There's so many more variables.
Yeah.
A lot of variables.
And like there's our gym puppy Echo. Like I enjoy both sides of lifting, but to me, it's a different sport.
Yeah.
Totally different.
To me, raw lifting
It's flag football.
that works, but like what I enjoy saying is in raw lifting,
But to lose a lot of
the
clients.
monsters are going to win.
Genetic.
Like the genetic monsters are going to win because the skill level is not as high as with the equipment.
Right.
And I know I'm going to piss a lot of my listeners off on this, but when you put the equipment on, and the people that think that you can put a bench shirt on and just add 100 pounds, try it.
That's my best piece
Just
of advice.
try it.
Put on a bench shirt.
So
I tell people put on
talking about
easily.
before. We've got
Yeah.
about 5 or 6 people here that are raw lifters that have competed several times raw. Some are pretty new to even raw lifting, and we're trying stuff out. And what we're doing is we're trying a little bit easier gear, some loose stuff. Maybe a shirt that's not as intense. Like one of our girls just got an F6 that's probably at least a size, if not 2, loose.
Which I like. I think that's the way to
But
go.
like on day 1, she hit 30 pounds over her raw bench.
Which is
to
going
her
to make
chest.
them excited too.
Exactly. She liked it, and she's like, "Oh, I want to do this."
Right.
You know,
yeah.
my thing is
if we put her in, a super katana, low cut, and just super tight that it took her 20 minutes to get into it,
do that.
Yeah.
she might not have even wanted to do it after that.
Right. So as you go to bend your arms and the thing starts cutting into your tricep, you're like, oh.
Well, I mean, there's number one, like, you want to try gear. We don't even have to put gear. Let me wrap your knees.
Right.
It's not comfortable.
It hurts.
It hurts. My skin is off my knees when Coop wraps my knees. I mean, literally, I lose my skin.
Yeah, it's there's just a lot. It's a lot. There's a lot of variables, and you start to want simplicity.
I think a better one is checkers to chess.
Yeah.
Anything that's simple, easy to do.
Here's my thing,
easy
too,
to
is
start.
Checkers doesn't have a whole lot of
versus
moves.
something that takes time.
Most raw athletes that put on gear,
Get
if they
killed in
don't,
checkers.
if they don't like
So mad at
lifting in
checkers.
gear, they at least have a respect for it, and they realize
Right.
that it's. So all these guys,
Try it.
all these guys that bash gear, and I asked the question, "Have you ever been in gear?" No. Well, then what are
Right.
you talking about?
And like you said, like
But
with the meat,
you might not like it, and you might not. You don't have to respect it. I'm not here to tell anyone they need to respect
That's fine.
what I do, but when you put it on, you'll definitely have an appreciation for it. That it's not as easy as you think it is.
The idea that it's cheating, that it's like the same thing, but like it gives you like you can add more weight is not.
Well, so is 8 people putting your knee sleeves on in the back room.
Sure.
well, it's like you said with like wrapping his knees before, the local meet is like. You've got that variable of generally with raw lifters, announcer says bars loaded, and they're on the platform within 2 seconds.
Oh, you can just sit there. You wait.
And they're squatting in under 10 seconds. The bar's racked, and depending on your spotters and loaders, we said before the Arnold's a fast meet. The spotting team there is very fast. It's going to be a faster meet. If you're in a local meet that has an inexperienced spotting team, maybe it's slower to load.
Yep.
If you're raw, not a big deal. You're sitting over there, you're fine. If you're wrapped, and now you're sitting there for 2 minutes wrapped,
Hurts.
Well, it's
and you're
the
like,
other thing
hey, I'm losing feeling in my feet.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have time to unwrap you because if we unwrap you and have to rewrap you, you're going to time
You
out.
take those,
also
wraps off.
So you know
I'm
what?
not
You're-
going back out.
Yeah,
there.
you're gonna go squat.
There's
800
also nothing
pounds,
worse than too. You
with
get
numb
out
feet.
there, and you look at the bar and it's wrong, and then they're like, "Oh, hold on," and then the head judge usually catches it first, and then they start fixing it, and you're standing there like, because it's really. I think when you're sitting down, the knee wraps aren't too bad because you can focus on relaxing, but as soon as you stand up, they cut into you.
For me, it's not the standing there with the knee wraps. It's by the time the squat's taking place, I'm starting to feel it. So when I'm sitting there waiting for them, I'm like, all right, I'm used to being in knee wraps for 20 seconds. By the time I get out there, get onto the bar, unrack it, now as I'm walking out, I'm going like, God, my feet, I literally can't feel my feet. I can't feel my feet. That's not a good feeling to have when you have 800 pounds on your back.
Yeah, it's
And I think, again, going back to like a local meet or a regional meet where most lifters are raw, not like, Equip Nationals is different because everyone knows it. Everyone's doing the same thing.
Yeah, unless you're in
but
Texas.
like, they don't get it where here we're like, if there's a misload or if someone takes a minute instead of 5 seconds, it's not the end of the world. Maybe mentally you're like, oh, you got to step back because it's misloaded. But again, you're not in the wraps for now 4 minutes.
right.
And all of a sudden you're like, man, like you said, and we talked about Al Roth when Al went to Nationals, I think 2 years ago, and I was coaching him. His last attempt, he was wrapped forever because they misloaded the bar.
Right.
And he's like, my feet were numb.
Thanks
So
for
he
not
went out
answering my text, Al.
He went out for his first 300 kilo squat with numb feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
it's no good. It's not fun.
What do you like?
But again, that's part. So this is my thing, though. That's part of sports.
It's not going to change.
You know what I mean? No matter what, so I grew up playing football. Like sometimes you go out and the field is you
have to
can't see
adjust.
anything, and sometimes the field is a soggy disaster, and sometimes it's you're on turf. You have to. It's part of playing sports. Not everything's going to be perfect. The referees are going to make mistakes. The spotters and loaders are grabbed that morning and told, "Hey, you're going to spot and load for 8 hours."
That's a big thing, too. They're volunteering.
They're volunteering, so it's like you
hard to
can't get
complain
mad
about
at them, and it's just but that's part of sports. And what I see a lot is this attitude, like as soon as there's mistakes made, like somebody needs to be held accountable, and like people need it's just that's the sport.
Yeah,
If
sometimes
you're
you
gonna
just
play a
don't play
sport, mistakes happen, and it's an important part to in gear. If a geared person can stand there a couple extra seconds, like you'll be fine.
Well, that we talked about. It was last year's Equipped Worlds, I think. It was last year's, and I'm not even going to try to say his name. The Ukrainian, I think he's a 105.
Dmitry Semenenko.
Yeah, that he blew out his squat suit on like
And
9.
then went up like 40 kilos to take the world record.
he blew it out at like 903.
Yeah.
And everyone that watched
That's what I have to go up against.
everyone here was like, did he just break his back? Because he just folded over because the suit just completely blew out. They said he was walking around the back room with his ass out.
Slapped him on the back of the head. Bar did.
They put him. They ran him in the back room, put him in a new suit, went up a shit ton.
He had to go up 40 kilos to go up past Rubitz.
Yeah,
who
and
just
hit it.
claimed the world record, and then he hit that
Like,
relatively easily.
yeah, that was
Which is
like
just disgusting.
just super impressive.
980 or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was like
950.
970 and change. So it was something
whatever it was.
silly
Yeah.
at 105. Like that's a crazy number, and I think people don't. Like I said, the people that have never tried it have no idea what that's like.
No.
Like,
Well,
especially local
his shirt blew out at Worlds. I mean, you don't know what it's like. That 600.
I messaged him like,
You don't know how
die? Like,
600 pounds slamming onto your chest. That couldn't have felt good for deadlifts.
Yeah, and then the people that like are starting and equipped and don't know enough. Like I said, when you did the meet here, I joked with you like that you had the multiple reps, because like what if you got to be ready? That's another variable. If your shirt blows on your opener. So you missed your opener. If you don't have a second shirt,
you can't go down.
You're done.
You're done.
It's over.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared for at least something like that to happen. Raw,
And
you're
it's
still not
also-
going to tear.
That's
Having
also
two knee wraps
really-
is good too. So you drop one of your knee wraps, so you're wrapping
Yeah.
your lifters. If you don't have another knee wrap rolled up, ready to go, they're gonna go out there with one stiff knee wrap.
Honestly,
and one
I like the
bad
idea of
one.
having three, one for each one. Why not? I mean, we have a wrap roller here, which does help a lot. But if you're doing it by hand, you're in trouble.
Hurt your forearms.
But why
And
not?
that's
have
one of
three?
the scariest things too, because like when you realize when something breaks how heavy the weight is. Because I like being in gear, because one of the way the gear feels when you unrack the weight, you're gonna be, if the gear feels right, you're good. But the second that it goes wrong, all of a sudden, like that bench at Worlds, as I was bringing it down, I was saying in my head, like, if I just keep my head down, I'm gonna smash this thing. Like, this is awesome. It's 672. It's never felt that way. And all of a sudden I started hearing like, snapping and popping, which isn't unnormal. It's for a bencher. And I'm as I'm bringing it down, I said in my head, like, this is either gonna go or I'm gonna press this thing. And then as soon as it breaks, it's like the reality of how heavy the weight is comes at you pretty quick, or my upper ribs pretty quick.
You're looking at. I mean,
comes at something pretty quick.
You're looking at. Bench is particularly terrifying. Not only, I mean, you have your safety set up. If you're a good archer, it's one thing, but like holding that in your hands over your face, like when you unrack something that heavy and you just feel it dig in your hands, you're thinking like, oh my god.
The other thing with gear too is you have to fight your brain, because in the back of your mind, and it again goes back to the mental toughness thing. Like, you can't do this. Like,
Can't do it right.
Right. So like that like as soon as you unrack a weight, especially I find this with
I
squats
should
a lot.
interject. Cody can pull.
That's fair.
He can pull raw more than he can pull in gear.
That's fair. But like walking out a weight that would buckle you raw, and then having to get in the squat command and having to start going down, you have to have
It's scary.
yeah.
Again, it's another variable. Like you said,
scary, it's
if any
fun.
of the equipment goes while you're doing it, something bad's going to happen.
And usually
hopefully
I
not
have
too
college,
bad.
and
It could happen to
usually
you. It could happen to your spotters and loaders, like you said, are volunteering their time.
Yeah.
You blow out a squat suit, they got to catch 800 pounds. It's not easy to do.
Right. Like something's going to happen where in Raw, the likelihood of that happening, we did see in Atlanta.
Unless it's a real bad injury or
Right.
something.
Guy blew a quad out in Atlanta and dumped like
last year, too.
660, 670.
Yeah.
That'll happen.
And the spotters took it, like one of the spotters got hurt. But like an equipped, there's a higher chance of that
Oh,
happening.
yeah. Because you can't recover.
And
right, because you can't fight yourself back into the.
Even if you misgroove it and like say your knees shoot back and your hips shoot back, you're not good morning, 150 pounds over your raw squat max. Not gonna happen.
That's another one of my new favorite things that I see a lot now is like so you get these raw kids who are benching or squatting, and then they hit a strength issue and they say, "Oh, I just came out of the groove."
Because it was heavy.
Yeah, you didn't come out of a groove. There's no groove raw. You either squat or bench. You can argue, but you're going to be wrong. There's no groove. I don't have any scientific facts to back this up. I don't coach people, and I don't really care. But I'm just saying.
the argument that I would make with that is I agree when someone says, "Oh, I came out of the groove." Well, yeah, because it's heavy.
Right.
That's my
That's
thing.
what I'm saying.
When it's
I know
heavy,
there's a
shit
groove.
happens.
I understand there's a groove. I'm
When
just
it's
saying.
over 90%, 95%, like
Right, you're not gonna
It's
look
not
good.
going to be pretty. If it's pretty, it's not 90 or 95%. You
Right.
got stronger, which is great. But if your technique is dead on with 100%,
Yeah.
it's not 100%,
Right.
Or you're just sandbagging everything, and
Which is popular. That's hot in the streets
Yeah,
too.
you came out of the groove, but did finish the lift.
Right.
You have to finish the lift.
Because in gear,
can't do
you
that.
can't. There's
Right.
no coming
So
out of the groove.
and that's one of the reasons why
Maybe
we,
on the deadlift,
we do
but-
things like good mornings and we do safety squat bar good mornings that are really going to push you out of position. That in a raw lift, and I say this all the time, like you might be able to muscle through it and finish the lift. So like I said, safety squat bar good morning puts you in a shitty position. And if you get into that shitty position on a squat, if we've done that, then maybe you can get out of it.
Right.
If you do that with 880 on your back in your suit, no.
Right, you're not
Just
shooting
go.
your hips back
When
under
you
the
bring down your
bar.
bench shirt and you pop it off your chest and your elbows go up first.
Yep.
Good luck skull crushing
Right.
545.
It's going right for your face.
Right.
And
There's no recovering.
And I think that's that's the skill aspect that people miss. The technical level to be good in equipment is much higher than raw.
Most
That's
people
raw,
get
you
into
can
this.
muscle it.
Most people get into the sport to lift the most weight that they can. So I encourage you to try gear because
You can lift more weight.
if you don't like it, like I said, I don't care. You're not going to offend me, but I know everyone we've put in gear. So first of all, we put a few people in gear.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. Making mass barbell.
Geared
a
Mecca.
gear gym. So we put a few guys in gear. A lot of people have
got
loved
4.
it. Some people have tried. Some people have tried gear, and they still lift raw, but they definitely have a respect for the gear. Like all
that's
I'm
fine.
asking is just try. If you're gonna bash it, try it. And
Well,
if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. I don't care.
I've only been in the bench shirt once, but I've helped handle people that are in gear. I've seen how fucking hard it is. I know every aspect matters. So even people don't want, if they hate lifting in the gear, getting in it and being around it would make you a better raw lifter.
I would also say if you hate gear, you need to evaluate your reasons for why do you hate
Right.
gear?
But I'm saying anybody.
Because I've met people who are just they hate it
Without knowing anything
and
about it.
I don't get it. I don't
If someone says to
understand
me, I
why
hate
are
it
you
because-
that insecure about your 400-pound squat that
If someone says to me, I hate the gear because it feels like my head's going to explode,
right.
that's fine.
Then it's not for you.
Then that's a good reason.
But now you know.
That's a good reason to hate it.
now you know when we're doing that. That's what we feel.
Yeah. So we have a lifter here, Sarah, that Sarah decided to get into the bench shirt probably about a year ago, I guess. She was like a 205, 210 raw bencher. She put the shirt on in meet. I think she hit 287 in the shirt. In training, she hit 300. And so she said, all right, let me take the next step. So we got squat suit and knee wraps. And she started loading that on. And she's probably like a 340 raw squatter. I think we had 450 on the bar, and she wasn't even close to hit depth. Mm-hmm. And she knew it. And she's like, how much am I going to have to load on this? I said, 500 plus.
That's horrifying.
So we're talking 150 pounds over her max.
Scary to hear that.
To just hit depth.
Yeah.
And she was like, holy shit. So we took a little bit of a step back. We're going to work back up. But that's not something I think people think you can throw it on in 100
Well, plus the window is, like I was telling you earlier, my window, so I have real bad tennis elbow. My window between touching something heavy enough to touch my chest in a bench press and actually being able to press it hits small.
Yeah.
So it's not like on raw where you can go out there and just open up at 90%, smoke it, get your next lift. I can't open any lighter than I can touch with. I have to be able to touch what it is. Well, if I can only touch 540, but my max press is 545, we're in some dicey territory.
And that's we talk about with bombing out. I mean, in equip, it just might happen. It just
it happens to the best of us.
It's just part of the sport.
Most people, I don't really know many people that have done a lot of meets in gear and have not.
Right. In raw, it's pretty rare. Well, that's not true. It's
That's
not
not true at all.
It
happens
should
all the
be more
time.
rare.
It should be more
outside of certain circumstances. But in equipped, it's like you said,
it happens.
It's you get a load enough on the bar to hit depth or to touch your chest, and that might be 98%.
Or guess what? By the time you finish squats and you're getting in your bench shirt and it feels real loose and you want to change your opener, the openers you can't change them anymore. Yeah. So now you got to figure out how you're going to go hit your opener with a shirt that feels 2 sizes too big.
And like you said before, and that goes back to the cutting one too, because in raw, we've talked about this more than once in the podcast.
Cut so much weight.
People love to cut weight, and in raw, you can kind of get away with it. We've had a lot of people cut and then have a bad meet anyway, because cutting I don't think it's a great idea.
Stupid as hell.
But in equipped,
I think it's stupid. I think
more than a kilo or two. Or?
I mean, the thing is,
because you're not training in the right gear then.
Right, and the other thing is powerlifting, both raw and equipped. It's a performance sport. Your body needs liquid to perform.
We're not looking at a 24-hour weigh.
Right, it's not and again, it's a sport where it's unlike other sports where there's no if you're a boxer or a fighter or whatever, wrestler, you can it's all right, I got to cut 10 pounds, but it's a championship. I got to dig deep for this one. I'm going to ignore the pain.
24-hour weigh-ins.
Go get it. Whatever. In this, I mean, if you deplete yourself, you can't squat your max. And doesn't matter how many salt tablets you lick up or whatever weird things that they do to try to get that back in, you're not going.
It's not gonna happen.
If you cut 10 pounds of water, you're not going to put 10 pounds, your body's just not going to take
Why
it.
is the USAPL a 2-hour weight cut specifically to avoid
Right.
people cutting weight?
And you're not going to beat that system. Like, they have the system in place specifically so
Might
you
get
can't
lucky.
beat it.
And well, I think
Kilo or two, maybe?
So there was some group that put out a study, like they basically just interviewed everyone from Raw Worlds and showed that most of the people that won golds cut weight, but so did everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone was competing at a weight, like I think they only said like 20% of people actually did not cut weight. They were probably the ones that were at the lower end of the spectrum.
But what
Like,
would you rather
so if
do?
everyone's
Would you
cutting,
rather-
you're all competing at a lower ability.
I'd rather
And
just lift the way I lift.
So you know,
just
you
compete
what
at the higher ability with one
Have
weight.
some
one
discipline.
weight
You know what
class
you'll
left.
see a lot of in raw powerlifting. You'll see the people close to their weight class. You'll see a lot of people in gear at nationals coming in at like 102 because that's just what they weigh. They're not going to try to get down to 93.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Semenenko is like 100 kilos.
Right.
He's right in the middle of
just
two
lift
weight
where you
classes.
lift.
He just because you can't do that because if you can put it back on and perform, you know, good for you. It's awesome. But if you can't put that size back
Right,
on
right.
into your muscles. So when you put on your squat suit, it's way too loose, and then you don't get as much
Trouble.
out of it. You know what I mean?
On our goal sheet for our lifters, I have for the raw lifters. It says this is your weight class. This is as high as you can be to cut from.
Mm-hmm.
If you're above this weight, you're going up a class
Well, the other
because
problem,
you're gonna have negative effects.
You have
As
a
an
lot
equipped
of-
lifter, that number is much smaller.
the other issue with that, with raw lifting, though, is there's just so much ignorance out there. You know, I mean,
It's
people
growing up so quickly.
It exploded.
like people read an article and they think that they have the equivalency of like a doctorate in nutrition, you know, because and so they're telling somebody who, you know, so they're telling their client, because everybody's a coach too, they're telling their client, you know, how they should be cutting weight, and then that client is now parroting what they said from an article that they didn't really understand. And then, you know, they're just this, because I see that all the time. It's like there's these really, like if you take a step back and you just use common sense, you see these really, you're about to put your body through a really rigorous test. And and you see these things that get passed around as like good ideas. And if you just took a step back and used like common sense, you're like, that seems like a really bad idea to try to be starving yourself and sweating out all this weight and doing all these things. But the problem is that there's so much parroting that goes on, and no one can really point to where, and nobody wants to say that I think this is a bad idea, because then people are going to get called mean names, and like it's this weird. And then the idea washes out too, which is the good thing. Like it takes a couple months, and then the idea washes out, and then somebody else reads an article they don't understand, and then a new idea comes in. And
So also too, you see a lot of people cutting in their first meet or something like that, and then they perform like shit and they hate the sport.
Yeah.
Like, so my thing is like, if you're gonna, you know, say my weight class, like, if I'm cutting weight to 105, it's because I need to be competitive. What's the difference between coming in at 6th and not even on the podium at nationals at 105, or coming in at just like 108, 109 and finishing 10th? When my total's better, I perform
Right.
better. Like, if you're not competing for a podium spot, what's the difference? You
And
might
that-
as well have fun.
And that's something we talk about all the time. We tell everyone never cut for your first meet.
Yeah.
Never cut for your first meet.
I wouldn't cut for any local meet.
Well, if you're trying, the only thing I would say then is like if you're trying to qualify, obviously for
That's
a certain
fair.
weight
Yeah,
class,
I know
okay. But
Raw nationals did get marginally more challenging.
But if you're going to do that, it should be. We talk about like if you're cutting to that weight class, it's because, like you said, you're very competitive in that weight class.
Competitive.
We have a couple women here, both Eva and Stephanie, that as 63s are arguably in the top 10 probably every year. As 72s, they're maybe top 25. So like. They have a shot to podium probably most years at 63, but they don't at 72. So I understand if they want to cut because they're like you said they have a shot to get on the podium and be top 5.
Well, another
if
thing-
they're not going to be, don't worry about it. But like and you did a meet in Albany that I think you were using as a qualifier for nationals that year.
yeah, it was.
But like you weighed in at like 120.5.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
Like,
well, we got him to 120.
We got
Got
him
us to 120 for a real hot minute.
but at that point you needed that as a qualifier, so
Right,
like it made
yeah.
sense. But if that was just a
I
if that
don't
was just a
recommend
meet,
standing on your head naked to get to weight.
it worked.
I can't believe that works. you know, I tried that at one of my meets after
works.
that. No, I gained weight. I gained weight. I'm like, we did something wrong. The guy goes, you know what? I saw you weigh in at 1.5.6. We'll go with that one. I'm like, I swear to God, this worked for Cody like a month ago.
I've used that with a couple people. I've helped people with it. It definitely works, but like I don't know why it works. It's weird.
You know what the other thing
Requires a
too?
great amount of sacrifice of self.
Well, again, that was very
self-respect.
but that was very specific. Like you were very close. Like I said, you were maybe only half a kilo over.
Yeah.
And you were trying to qualify, I think, 4 nationals for that. Like,
Yeah.
so it made sense.
In fairness, I screwed
But
up.
here's the thing,
cut
like
the
a
night
lot of
before.
times too, a lot of times too, and myself is a great example. So if I'm walking around fat and happy, eating whatever I want, I'm like 109. So most people that try to water cut have a physique in which they can just discipline and diet down.
Right.
Which is what I've done. You know what I mean? Like most people aren't so muscular and so lean, they don't have anything to lose. So just cut down near your weight class, a kilo or two, and then if you have
Which
to
will make you a better lifter anyway, because you're probably eating better, you're
Yep.
in a better condition.
100%.
Yeah, instead of, like you said, just cutting the water weight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. These people baffle me.
All right, we're getting close to an hour here. So
Yeah, this is very long for one of our podcasts. So I think we'll probably call it here. So you guys want to tell us anything about yourself, like Instagram, or do you care or not? Like,
Who cares?
No.
mailing
Alright.
address, like
Dan Douglas 22, CG Omps,
Venmo me.
Cooper Training
Hey,
Institute.
Titan, help me out.
I don't know if they're going to hear this podcast.
Oh, they should.
We'll get it out there.
I'll send it to Isaiah if you want, but I don't think he's going to care.
No, I don't think you will either. Actually. No, don't follow me.
end with don't follow me.
For more information on the gym and online coaching, go to GleasonPerformance.com. Follow the gym on Instagram at TeamGPT. And for any questions about the podcast, email Brian at GleasonPerformance.com.